Hello, wizards, witches, muggles and squibs. Today we have a very exciting first episode from our new series. Now you may have seen my preview in Quentin Pendragon's Weasley video. So without further ado, welcome to Spellbuzz. The series where I, your host, Francesca Williams, brings you the latest and greatest Wizarding World news. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing the new HBO series on the life and tribulations of Mr. Harry Potter and his time at Hogwarts. But my question to you, the viewer, is, do we need the series? I mean, we had the films, and they didn't come out that long ago, and they were global sensations. So why are they retelling the same story that they've told before? We're getting closer and closer to the release date, so let's have a look at what they're promising us. First and foremost, the series is expected to be out at the start of 2027, so we're not actually that close, but that's besides the point. And the thing that they're promising is book accuracy. Now, I believe this to be total book accuracy because the films were fairly book accurate. And the reason they're able to promise this is because of the time they've dedicated to each book. So with the films, they had a really strict runtime of 2 hours-ish, because who wants to watch a film longer than that? Not me, personally. I have watched, is it Gone with the Wind? And it is an extremely long film, so yeah, I can see why they kept it to 2 hours. But obviously that meant that they had to cut any parts that weren't working or that were taking too long or that they deemed kind of unnecessary to the plot. But with the series, they're dedicating 8 episodes. Each episode is 1 hour long, so in total they've dedicated 8 hours per retelling of each book. Obviously this might change as the series goes on, because right now they're only filming the Philosopher's Stone, and that's what we're kind of basing it off of. The Discovery CEO from Warner Brothers has said that they actually plan to dedicate 10 years to the filming of the series as a whole, which is obviously more than the 7 years that is stated kind of in the books as Harry's 7 years at Hogwarts, as you will. And I feel like this is just to give them a little bit more time as well to sort of make sure that they get everything done that they want to. I know the films actually cut a lot, for starters, but they cut some what I would consider crucial characters, including Peeves, who is the poltergeist at Hogwarts, if you don't know. And it was basically because the filming was just taking too long. I remember seeing them in an interview, and they said they obviously had all these 11-year-olds, and the guy that was playing Peeves, he was very funny. They casted it very, very well, but the kids couldn't stop laughing, and they just couldn't get the take that they wanted to. So they just, in the end, had to cut the character as a whole because the time that it was taking to film it was basically eating into their budget.
See, I think it was 3 weeks later. I was in the film for 3 weeks, and then they cut me out.
I also wonder if they're going to add a sort of backstory to Tom Riddle. I feel like they did it a little bit in the films, but with the films, it was a bit more kind of telling rather than showing, I felt. So I wonder if they're going to go into his backstory a bit more, including like Merope and his mother, and like the love potion aspect of it as well, and why he's so heartless, and the whole thing at the orphanage, you know, when he like kills the animals and stuff. So I don't know, I think that'd be really interesting for us as viewers to watch as well, because that's actually something we haven't seen before compared to the bulk of it, which we will have seen before televised. And the one bit that I really, 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 really hope that they show, and I'm sure you guys will too, is the Marauders backstory-ish. By that, I mean the relationship between James and Sirius, Peter and Remus, and I think it's actually really crucial for the plot for them to show that, and with their 8 hours per book limitation, there's absolutely no reason why they can't delve into that. But for me, I think, especially in Prisoner of Azkaban, it's really important to show as much as they can about the relationship between Harry's parents and their friends, in order to show why the betrayal of Peter Pettigrew was so terrible. I don't think the films encapsulated that as well as it could have, and I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that's my personal opinion. And I also think, in terms of the last book, Deathly Hallows, I would really like to see more of a relationship between James and Lily, and then obviously how that impacted Snape and why Snape hates Harry quite so much. I feel like the film showed it, but it was very brief and they didn't want to go into it too much. And personally, one of the biggest things for Harry at his time of Hogwarts for me that I notice is how much Snape hates him, which is why Harry is always accusing Snape. So I just feel as if they really need to go into why Snape hates Harry so much, because he looks like James, but he has Lily's eyes. Which leads me on to the next point about book accuracy, about how they have cast the lovely Dominic McLaughlin as Harry Potter. But like Daniel Radcliffe, he has blue eyes. So in order to keep it book accurate, and this is, I feel like, the key thing that a lot of people say the films didn't do, which annoyed them so much, is they need to give him coloured contacts. They need to give him green contact lenses to make his eyes green, because it's like the whole point in all the books. It's brought up constantly. Harry's eyes are green, just like Lily's. And then you had Daniel Radcliffe, who played an amazing Harry, but he's looking back at you with bright blue eyes. So there's a few things for them to consider. And I think with the fact that they know Harry Potter is so big, I think they should have quite a lot of budget and, let's just say, time and willingness to ensure that it's book accurate. Otherwise, what's the point of them doing the series, you know? What do we know for certain? Well, it's still produced by Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers owns HBO. We have Francesca Gardner as their showrunner and Mark Mylod as the director. Now, my thing with Francesca is a big positive, as she's actually worked on a book to film adaptation before, Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials. And this is the similar sort of realm as Harry Potter, in my opinion. It's not really wizards at all, so bear with me. It's similar in the sense that the lead characters are children and there's sort of a haunted past going on with them. And at the same time, they've got this fantasy aspect, like magical vibes, that is completely different to, you know, what we see in our everyday lives. And when I watched His Dark Materials, I did feel that it was done quite well, but I haven't actually read the book, so I think the comparison needs to rely on how that was compared to the book to see kind of how Harry Potter is going to be compared to the book, you know, for this series. Now, they also have their cinematographer, Adriano Goldman, and he has come out and said they have had an 18-week pre-production on the set for Harry Potter. And this is mainly because they're planning on building a set that's going to last. So they don't want to have to keep obviously doing it up every single year, changing it and what have you, but they also want to make sure the visuals are something they're happy with, not just sort of trending visuals, something that's really close to the story, let's say, something that feels homely to viewers and that they're not going to get annoyed at, which there's quite a high possibility, if they do it wrong, that the Harry Potter fandom are going to have some frustrations with that. Now, it worries me a little bit, because although he said that it was monumental and it's going to be a big task and something very different to what we've seen before, I'm a little bit concerned, because he has come out and said that it's going to be much more colourful and vibrant than the original films, and each to their own, that's fine. But I feel like part of the charm of the original films is the darkness and the kind of grey, mysterious, underlying dark academia vibes, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And I'm just a bit worried they're going to make it a bit circusy with the bright colours. And also, bright and vibrant sounds to me a little bit like this effect that's happening in cinema at the moment, which is where everything looks far too airbrushed. So I'm not sure if any of you have seen The Summer I've Turned Pretty or seen any clips of it whatsoever. But that book was actually set kind of 2010s-ish and like kind of Hollister, Abercrombie era, if that makes any sense to you guys. You know, a little bit of a messy barn, a bit of Zoella, all that jazz. But the series does not reflect that one little bit. It is giving perfect hair, no messy barns really, perfect like clothing, no layering, you know, it's really, to me, it doesn't look synonymous to the vibes I would expect from a book that was written in that era with that era in mind, if that makes sense. And obviously Harry Potter is written in the 90s with the 90s in mind, specifically surrounding children and the English weather. So I really hope that they go down a sort of Bridget Jones route with the she's frazzled English woman. Let's just shorten it to frazzled English or frazzled English children. Their hair should not be slicked back. I don't want to see a single slick back. I need to see flyaways. I need to see clothing out of place, because I just don't feel that if they don't do that, it will just miss them out completely. I just don't feel that it will work if they don't do it, basically. There's such a risk that they're going to take away the complete homey feeling by making it too Hollywood and too airbrushed. So for me, it's really important that they also remember the era the book was written in, remember J.K. Rowling's sketches and sort of what she expects, and then also to look at the films for some inspiration as almost like a father figure or an older brother, and pick from that what they need in order to make this series feel synonymous with the rest of the Harry Potter franchise, because obviously you have Fantastic Beasts and Crimes of Grindelwald and all that, which does actually, it still feels homely, but it is slightly more airbrushed than the original Harry Potters if you watch it. So that's just my opinion on that one. Now let's have a little look at the casting. So let's start with the Golden Trio, in which we have Hermione, played by Arabella Stanton, Ron, played by Alistair Stout, and Harry, played by Dominic McLaughlin. All three of these actors are young British actors. Arabella has actually played Matilda in Matilda the Musical, which, you know, that is almost like Hermione from another mother. Do you know what I mean? She's such a bookworm. Also has all these, well, obviously Hermione in Harry Potter does not like any sort of fortune telling, future telling, divination, anything like that. But obviously Matilda's a bit like that, but similar. They're both a little bit magical, shall we say, in their own way. So I think she'll absolutely nail it. And I really like, and this is not a negative comment on Arabella at all, but I really like that she kind of has the Hermione teeth. Like she has a nice prominent two front teeth, which is such an odd thing to say, but in the book Hermione's teeth are like mentioned a lot, I feel, and I kind of love that they've gone for an actor who has that as one of her prominent features as well, so I think that's really sweet. I've also seen some behind the scene photos of the Weasleys. So particularly of Ron, so Alistair, and also Molly Weasley, played by Catherine Parkinson. I've also seen commentary of these photos on the Weasleys, and I must say I agree. They basically talk about how Catherine in these photos literally looks like the perfect Molly. So Catherine's quite a bit younger than how Molly was depicted in the films, which is actually more accurate, book accurate, so they're doing well so far. But everyone was just saying the way she was standing, she's giving, I have a lot of children running about sort of thing. She's looking exactly how they would expect for Molly as a mother and how they would picture her in the books. So do have a look at those photos, because honestly, I think they really raised my hopes up for what this series is going to be. Not that I have bad hopes for it at all, but I'm just very critical of the fact that it's already been done once. And so I feel like if they're doing it this time, my hopes have gone from like here to here. So I also have a lot of criticisms. Let's start off with my first one for the casting. It's the fact that they've cast an American, John Lithgow, as Dumbledore. And personally, I think it's a very interesting choice. Now, you might not know this, but in the original films, when they made them, J.K. Rowling was extremely clear that she wanted only British actors in the films. And so much so that actually Chris Columbus went to her and said he wanted Robin Williams in the film. And J.K. Rowling just turned him down and said, we're not having him, he's American. Which is why we have so many British icons in the films, why they feel so lovely. And one of the reasons why we love them so much is partially to do with the casting. Like, come on, Alan Rickman was a perfect Snape. Maggie Smith was a perfect McGonagall. Do you know what I mean? So for me, that's a really interesting choice. Complete 180 almost on J.K. Rowling's original intentions. But obviously, it has been, 20 years now? So I think, or over that actually. We don't know if J.K. Rowling's views have changed or her opinions changed, or even if she was actually consulted for this process. We don't really know how much she is actually involved, as much as they want to say, you know, she's given her opinion. I feel like production with this one kind of have that trust with her now, so she might be letting them have a little bit more free reign, so it'd be interesting. Another hot topic on casting is the casting of Snape. So Snape is being played by British actor Papa Asedu. He's Black British, and this is one of the things that make people question whether they're actually staying true to the book, because a lot of people feel that this is not synonymous with Snape's description in the book, where he's described as pale, sallow, pallid, which also to me kind of suggests someone who's never been outside. So this can actually be depicted through makeup on set, because you can make anyone of any skin tone look like they've never been outside, basically, because everyone would look greyish and yellowy and sickly. But that's each to everyone's own views of Snape and opinions. So just a lot of people have a problem with their idea of Snape and how the series have casted Snape, but personally, I feel like most of the time it's much more important for the actor to have a perfect embodiment of the character. And if Papa can do that, which I'm sure he can, because he did actually go to one of the UK's top drama schools, Guildhall, then I don't see really what the problem is. For me, the most worrying part, like I said, about the contact lenses and Harry Potter, we need the green eyes, is for Snape, I feel like his image heavily relies on his greasy hair and his hooked nose. And with Alan Rickman, they actually made prosthetic noses for him. But in the end, they sort of looked at him and said, well, you've got a Roman nose, that kind of works. Let's not bother putting a prosthetic on you. As you can imagine, in a production environment, right, that's an extra hour earlier that Alan Rickman's got to come in to have that prosthetic nose put on his face, which is extra pay and extra this and so much extra stuff that they've got to do. So they went for his original Roman nose, but I feel like with Papa doesn't have a Roman nose or any sort of nose that like could be synonymous with Snape's hooked nose. So I feel like a prosthetic would be quite important for him. So I'm very interested to see if they actually choose to go that way and give Snape his classic sort of vulture, eagle look. That's my most important thing, I feel. Next, we're moving on to Voldemort. So many fans have sort of said that they think Cillian Murphy or Matt Smith might play Voldemort. Unfortunately, both have recently come out and said that they have no affiliation with the production whatsoever and they are absolutely not playing Voldemort. More so, Cillian Murphy has been more putting his foot down with that one rather than Matt Smith. And I think Matt Smith was the favourite anyway for this because he's already working on House of the Dragon with HBO. A lot of people are wondering if he's going to move from House of Dragon. They're going to pick him up, pluck him out and put him in Harry Potter for a little bit. I'm not sure. However, I do feel like there's a bit of a grey area with stars coming out and saying, I'm not working on that production, because for productions to go ahead a lot of the time, pretty much all the time, stars and cast members, especially for big productions, have to sign NDAs, so non-disclosure agreements. And this basically means that they're not allowed to tell the media anything to do with the production. I don't know if you remember, Tom Holland had a massive slip up with this and Spider-Man and Marvel because he sort of started telling the interviewer what happens in it and stuff. And it's just a big no-no. So I wonder if the production are trying to keep it under wraps and maybe we have guessed right, but they've told Matt Smith or Cillian Murphy that they are just absolutely not allowed to come out and say it, because I feel like, especially in Philosopher's Stone, Voldemort is quite a secretive character. Obviously, he's on the back of Quirrell's turban, like he's hidden for most of the movie and most of the book and most of the series in this case. And so I feel like at the end when he's unwrapped, it's just going to be like, oh my gosh, it's that actor. Or maybe not because of the prosthetics, but I feel like I understand why they'd want to keep it secret and maybe why they are keeping it secret from us. So yeah, let me know what you think on that one, because I don't really have any other idea of who might be playing Voldemort. I do feel like it would be an English actor though, because I think, I have a feeling that it's going to be an English actor. I don't think it's going to be Benedict Cumberbatch, because that was one of my thoughts originally, but I just think he's just such a big actor and he doesn't really play those sorts of evil roles. He plays the mysterious guy. I'd see him more as a teacher rather than Voldemort himself. So yeah, but please give me your opinions on that one, because I'm not sure and I want to kind of try and guess as well, and then see when it comes out to kind of look and see who it actually is. My next thing is about the direction that they could take it, because like I said earlier, do we need the series? Not particularly, a lot of people would say, and I feel like there's a lot of room for adding on that they could do, particularly in prequel series, which is kind of HBO's thing at the minute. So they obviously had Game of Thrones, and then they have House of Dragons, which is kind of a prequel add-on sub-story to Game of Thrones. And I just think it would be absolutely amazing if they did a Marauders series separate, or even film. To be honest, I think for Marauders, a series would be better because you have more flexibility. But if they did like a House Founders one, I think they could get that done in a film and it would look great and be great. But there's a lot of problems if they were to cast Marauders. I suppose not at this point, because obviously they're casting Lily and James for the Philosopher's Stone when Harry sees them in the Mirror of Erised. So they would have the actors that they know they want. But I feel like a lot of fans have a really deep, I don't want to say emotional attachment, because I don't think that's the right word, but they really see themselves in the Marauders more than they do the Golden Trio. And I think it's just because the Golden Trio are kind of airbrushed to be quite perfect, whereas the Marauders are quite raw and real. So it's really important that if they were to cast Marauders, they would have to get it right. I mean, I do trust that they get the ages right because, like I said, Molly in the series is a lot younger than how Molly was portrayed in the film. So I know the ages would be much more on point in the series. And if they did a Marauders spin-off, that would be true as well. Because this was a big thing for me in the films is Snape was so old. Snape was so old and he's supposed to be the same age as Harry's parents. And then Harry's mum in the photo when she's holding him when he's little looks like 25. And then Snape when he goes to Hogwarts looks about 60. It's just a big gap. That's something they'd have to be mindful of, but I think they've got it covered, to be honest. But yeah, it'd just be the casting of the Marauders that they'd have to get right. But I feel like they would have a lot of room to work with it because it could kind of be about the Marauders, but also about Voldemort's first rampage, and it'd give you a complete backstory. So even if you weren't a big Marauders fan, you could still watch it and be like, wow, this really helps give me a well-rounded idea of what's to come in Harry Potter, and you can watch them synonymously and together and just do a massive movie marathon, series marathon, as you will, which would actually take forever considering now they've got 8 hours per book, but here we are. We do what we have to do. For us Harry Potter lovers, we will do it. But yeah, that's just something to think about. I don't know. I know there's been a lot of talk about the sort of actors that people would love to cast as Marauders, and I have seen fan casts on TikTok. Don't you worry, guys. But I don't know. If you were to cast it now for the series, it's quite different. I feel like you've got to look at it through a different lens of who you'd cast, because you have to look at the child actors that they've cast as well and go, okay, do these guys work with the kids? And then you also have to think, okay, these are the teachers they've cast. Do these actors who've cast the Marauders work with the teachers as well? But I feel like that'd be the trickiest thing, because that's where they get the backlash from fans on the Marauders, because that's where the fans have them closest to their hearts, to be honest. And also, if the actors didn't know enough about the Marauders, they weren't deep in the fandom, I feel like that would cause a lot of backlash too, because everyone has this very clear idea of how the Marauders are as well. So that's another thing. And lastly, I just want to say that apparently, allegedly, Hogwarts Legacy 2 is supposed to relate to the HBO series. Now, I'm not quite sure how they'll do that, because the Hogwarts Legacy 2 video game is kind of a different era to the series. But I also wonder if they're going to plant any Easter eggs, like just little bits about the castle, the castle lore, the ghosts, the founders, anything like that they can plant in the Hogwarts Legacy 2 video game that will pull through to the series. And I love that they're doing that, because I do feel like Harry Potter is such a well-rounded fandom, and as a fandom we look at all the parts, all the films, all the video games, all the books, all the content available to us we use to piece together a picture. So I love that they would incorporate that. Obviously, let's be real, it is to get the video game sales up, because if I found out there was Easter eggs in a video game, I'd be buying it, quite frankly. So that's really why they're doing it. But I would love to see if their Easter eggs that they're putting in there are important enough to make you want to buy it, shall we say. But that's all I have to say on the HBO series at the moment, to be honest. We don't know much more, but when we do, I will update you, don't you worry. I'm right here on the Spellbook Chronicles channel, along with lots of other videos about the Wizarding World, hosted by my friend Quentin Pendragon. Please like and subscribe if you're new here for more updates, and look for anything with the title Spell Buzz, as that relates to me, Francesca Williams. Bye-bye for now.